Hello, I'm Doug, and this is the Taste and Sensibility channel. And today we're on the last episode, number 13, of Stinky Cheeses, where we're looking at this German-made Limburger. So this is a pretty sad story, but I didn't really enjoy the Limburger the first time from a domestic producer, but I went through all the tasting rituals I usually do, and then I went to shop some local stores for one last round of trying to round up things, and I found this Bavarian-made Limburger from Saint Mang. I don't know what that name is. And then thought, okay, I guess I have to get it. But I'm not happy about it. I try to remember to give thanks to God for all the wonderful flavors and aromas He puts in our food and drink, but it's going to be hard for me to be thankful about this one. But it does come with a recommendation here from Liz Thorpe, who wrote this wonderful book, The Book of Cheese. And I mentioned this chapter called the Taleggio Gateway. And the first Limburger I did, the domestic one, but I'll put a card for that up here. But today's choice is another one of the recommended brands. So we did the domestic one with Chalet Cheese Company, but Casserai Champignon. I don't know how you do German, French sounding names in German. Casserai Champignon. But anyway, that's a recommended brand here. And her notes for Limburger are awful. The smell's bad, the taste is bad. But we will go ahead and get into it. And while I try to figure out how to open this guy up, let me get you to like this video, leave comments and questions down below, and share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel. If you click on that bell, you will get notified when the new videos come out, even if they're about Limburger. Okay. So this is an easier open than many, but I'm having to touch this sticky inner wrapper, and it stinks. So intense and unpleasant, I want to get rid of the wrapper. So the odor here is fairly intense. It's like someone's body odor, or an old barn or farm. A farmyard where too many animals were. It's unpleasant. So, hey, we got extra time from having that open. I'm going to cut a new surface. Okay, so it's a nice, mild-looking, pleasant cheese inside with a fairly soft texture. This has been out of the refrigerator for 2 hours or more. So you can probably see there in the overhead that this is really soft and easy to move around, very mobile. So I will risk cutting my tongue. Oh man, I had to touch the outside way too much. I'll go ahead and get a piece on the knife and taste that. I don't have to taste it from the knife. So here's my first taste of this German-made, awful smelling Limburger cheese. Okay, there's funkiness to the taste, but it's subdued, it's background, it's mellow. I get some saltiness. Okay. This is interesting. It's just the stinky bacteria on the rind that's causing all the fuss. The cheese itself is fairly pleasant, although I don't think the dairy notes make it through. This is a plasticky sort of mouthfeel. It holds to itself more than it wants to separate or smear around in your mouth. So funky notes, maybe even fishy notes, but they're mild, subdued, mellow background. Like I said, I do get the salt. There might be a slight cheesy character to it, but it's the cheesy that's really loud. So flavor's not intense, but they're strong things in small amounts, it maybe is what I would say about it. So let me see if I can get a few pieces here. This is an interesting texture. I haven't seen anything quite like this. So this is from a major cheese maker in Germany, in Bavaria, according to the label, southern Germany. And yeah, this might not be nearly as bad as I feared. We'll see what eating the actual rind is, because I've stayed away from it here. And the rind is where the strongest aromas and flavors are. So I've got a nice little pile there. So I'm going to take a nice little wedge here, and I'm going to put it on a multi-grain cracker without wheat. It's mostly seeds and things. So, this unpronounceable kind of German, this unpronounceable type of German Limburger. Here we go. Well, with the rind on it, I mostly got salty notes, slight savory things, and the cracker is fairly tasty too. It's got some strong flavors from the nuts and nut and seed world. So the cheese is not overpowering in terms of flavor. So that's interesting to me, that the outside can be so sticky, terrible feeling. And smell so bad, but the cheese itself is pretty mild and subtle. On a club cracker, I got a different mixture of tasting notes. So savory things, not quite like baking spices, but something meaty, some kind of broth, something made from meat, and salty. And the crackers contributing some to that, I'm sure. But it's easy to detect the salt in the cheese also. So, okay, that was pretty good. And the SD card ran out. So I will do it again just to have some stuff to work with. So here's a bigger piece on a small cracker, small flatbread. Let's do it. Do it again. I'm liking that. The flatbread is kind of rich, grainy, salty, and the cheese has some strong flavors that match it. But none of them are very dairy. There's a creamy texture to it, alongside the plasticky nature. And it's still, I mean, it looks shiny too, you can see that. The worst thing is having this stuff on my fingers, because the smell is terrible. So, running out of crackers here, I'll go ahead and put this on a rosemary cracker, which has been in since in the past. So now I want to see how the new flavor gets along with this cheese. Wow, okay, just the rosemary aromas in the cracker. From dried rosemary baked into a cracker. Fills up my whole oral nasal cavity. And it's almost stronger than anything in the cheese. So, if you want to taste it, might not want to do that. And even though I'm going to make sandwiches later, or at least one, I'm going to try a bit of this on this rye bread. Okay, that's pretty decent. Strong flavor for a bread in this dark pumpernickel, which is just Pepperidge Farm. It's probably full of brown things that and white flour, and not much rye. Okay, I think I'll move on to pairings. I think I'm going to try decent sized piece of cheese, 2 layers here, and 1 small piece of fresh pineapple. So here goes, pineapple and Limburger. Okay, that's weird. Nothing bad about it, but it's just flashes of pineapple, you know, fresh, tropical, juicy, sweet, and then flashes of these funky notes from the cheese. So it's all this stuff and this stuff and this stuff and that stuff. So it's not disturbing or anything, it's just not what I expected it would be. And I'm going to make these pieces smaller. And get a big fat one and put it together with a Smyrna fig. These are all dried out, seedy, crunchy, and cut in half so there's not as much of it. This is a dried Smyrna fig and Limburger cheese. Wow, again, not a clash, but I'm going back and forth between these two worlds of this funky cheese with otherwise mild flavors. Nothing really dairy or cream, butter, milk type notes in it. And then these very concentrated and sweet flavors from the fig. And then the texture contrast, crunchy seeds versus everything else. So, whew, I liked it. I'm not sure it went, but I have just got to wipe my fingers again because the smell keeps getting to me. There, and I think I will try for the next thing a little slice of jalapeno on a smallish piece of cheese and see what happens with this. So the chili was fresh and green and herbaceous and it gives me all the things I like about green peppers. And the cheese was salty. And I'm not sure I got any other flavors, but the texture was interesting. The texture contrast was interesting. And I didn't really get any heat. And I think these would be heat if I would get the heat if I ate them without cheese. So I think the fatty nature of the cheese is protecting parts of my tasting apparatus from the capsaicin in there. So that's not bad in any way, shape, or form. Now, I'm going to try, I can't decide if I want a cracker or just cheese and dry cherries. So some of the crackers are stronger in flavors than the cheese. I think I'm just going to go with the two things here. So 3 dried cherries and Limburger. Oh. That's pretty good. Dark, concentrated in tartness from the dried cherries. There's a sweetness to it, but there's a tartness and a tang. And they poke through the cheese notes and flavors pretty well, which are very mild in background, as I've been saying. So, I guess the last thing before the sandwich trick is to do some cheese with some fresh blueberries. So I don't have a good way to put them together, so I'll just put them all in my mouth at once and eat them together. That's good. The blueberry's not especially sweet, but it's very fruity and juicy. And it's a great contrast to the cheese. Almost made it seem like it was creamy or had some dairy components to it. Yeah, blueberries do that sometimes. And they almost always work with cheese. And it certainly worked here. So I don't remember doing a lot of pairings with the Limburger the first time through. And maybe I should have. But I was just wanting to get through that thing. And I thought thought this one's going to be like it. And it was fairly different. So this has not been a problem except on my fingers. So I don't think. So I am doing the sandwich thing again, which is a Wisconsin thing, a cultural practice where they make the American cheese, is to eat the Limburger on dark rye with onion. Yeah, that's enough. I don't need The third one, and I've got some red onion here. Last time I had 2 different kinds, and that was kind of overkill. Don't really need. Yeah, I don't know. So there, lots of onion, lots of cheese. I'll just go for it. So I'd say the onion is the strongest thing in there, and I don't really get much of the cheese flavors. And I don't get much of the rye bread character, because it's a very, in this combination, the rye bread is just a vehicle, a carrier. Yeah, I can tell it's a dark bread and a pumpernickel type thing. But I'm not especially fond of the combination of the onion and the cheese and the bread. But if I was served this somewhere, I'd be able to eat it, finish it, and say, yeah, that's very interesting. So, I don't think I want to finish it now, though. So, this whole thing was not what I expected. I think I am thankful for this cheese, and I'll remember where I got it, which I think was Whole Foods. And the best buy date that was on it was about 6 days ago. So it didn't have any problem making it to the finish line and going a little beyond. And I've had this cheese out at room temperature, warming up for the video to shoot it a couple times before, and then something happened. I didn't do the video. So it's been out, warmed up, put back in the fridge. It's been out, warmed up, back in the fridge, and then out today for 2 hours. So it's not suffering anything that I can tell from that kind of treatment, but this is probably near the end of its useful life. I am pretty pleased with this because it wasn't as bad as the first Limburger, or as bad as I imagined. But I think that's going to do it for this episode, and then for the whole series of stinky cheeses, because I don't expect to go out and look again for more of these, because it's not a very popular category. So I think that'll be it for this whole series. So stick around to see what comes next, and cheers.